For my favorite psychobiology topic was psychopathology. And even though we're technically not at that chapter yet, I was more than excited to learn about it because I want to pursue clinical psychology. And abnormal psychology was my favorite class I've ever done. And that's why getting into this chapter just sparked my interest so much. And my biggest thing and how I personally connect to it is I have my own mental issues in a sense. I have anxiety, and that's kind of what pulled me toward this field. And something I found very interesting, which I didn't even know was possible, was this diagram shown that I've seen passed around, and you can see no ADHD and ADHD brain activity. You can see what's like overactive. Well, this is normal on the PTSD, but it's enlarged, and so normal control in the OCD area, the frontal lobe, in obsessive compulsive disorder, you have overactive areas, and with depression, you have underactive areas, which is beyond interesting because even though you cannot physically see it on someone when you look at a person, you can catch it on camera. And I'm curious as to what other ways we can discover what we can learn about psychopathology. Especially, we've learned it through these kind of under the same umbrella, the ADHD, OCD, PTSD, that's kind of all, the OCD and PTSD is anxiety. Is kind of the same umbrella, but I'm really curious about like what's the brain activity of someone who experiences dissociative identity disorder, and what part of their brain activates from one personality to another, or say someone with antisocial personality disorder, what parts of their brains light up and what parts don't, because clearly they have cognitive usually they have like a higher intelligence than most, but they don't feel the correct emotions or developed emotions like the guilt, and the more complex emotions of like love, sympathy, empathy, those kinds of things, which would be really interesting to see more of the normal brain versus a mental illness brain. And going back to how I personally connect, that's a picture of me, which is the fear and anxiety person from the Inside Out movie, The Emotion. And I have a generalized anxiety disorder with a panic attack issue as well, or a panic disorder. And I became more interested on what was going on inside my brain, and I learned that the subcortical regions and the decision pathways of my brain can have blocked pathways. They're not making the correct. So when I panic, my decision pathways are blocked in some aspect. That's why I can't make effective decisions in the moment. Or I lack the serotonin. And you can lack serotonin or norepinephrine or the GABA. And you can either, so when you're going to lack those when you have anxiety, and there's multiple ways to treat it, which is the cognitive behavioral therapy, which I've been referred to do. And then some people do benzodiazepines, which is like Xanax is the most common one. But most people like me, I'm a very high functioning person. You would never know it if you saw me. Are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are SSRIs, like sertraline, which is Zoloft. And it's really interesting how common these mental illnesses are, and psychopathology is so applicable to everyone in everyday life, yet no one really talks about it and the stigma surrounding it. And I mean, this is what I want to focus my career on. I have never been so intrigued by a topic on its own, and to be able to relate in it in some ways. And then probably the most common way a lot of people can feel anxiety as an emotion or cope with it as a mental illness, it's it's very common, and I would love to do, obviously, my career, but I can't wait to do all the readings and the chapter in next week's activities.